Good morning. How are you?
He caught me off guard.
He caught you off guard, he did. Welcome back to Irish Whiskey Auctions 2023. It's our first auction, first videos of the new year, Kate. We had a good and busy Christmas.
We did.
I think everybody got a bit of downtime, and it was all welcome for us. So we're back in the throes of it all now. It's getting mad how the cycle starts again, and we're busy uploading bottles and photographing bottles and collecting bottles and doing all the various things. And it's looking like it's going to be another cracking auction. One of the things everybody's asking us about, what's 2023 bringing for Irish whiskey? Is it the bubble bursting? Is this happening? Is that happening?
Do you look like a crystal ball?
If you rub certain parts of me, will tell you things, but anyhow, that's a different argument. What do I think? I think it's going to, look, the demand is still there. The worldwide demand is still there. The distilleries, I mean, it's no longer just me and us here in Irish Whiskey Auctions talking about how the future of Irish whiskey. I mean, the big businesses have put their money where the mouth is. So you've got Middleton building a new distillery at 250 million. You've got Teeling and GND can't make whiskey quick enough. They've got a new malt distillery being built at the minute. They've a new grain distillery going to be built as well. Bacardi have bought Teelings, so again it shows the confidence in Irish whiskey. Bushmills have their projects going up there in Bushmills. So look, Irish whiskey is a huge thing. Yes, it may slow down a little. Yes, the prices might fall back. But is the demand going to crash?
No.
I don't think so. I think far from it. I think really when the American audience really engages with Irish whiskey, when people are moving from Scotch, they're looking for something different. I think that's what they're going to find in Irish whiskey. The Asian market, we know from talking to some of the brands, that's where they're going. Yeah. Nigeria is the biggest growing market for Jameson. I mean, all of these things are just building Irish whiskey to be where we need to be. Top of the pile. And I'll be standing there cheerleading like a lunatic because all the jobs it's created out of it. I mean, again, think of little distilleries like Brandy in Cologne or Michael above in Donegal. They're creating, local jobs. They're spending money. They're creating the jobs. Us here, yeah. I mean, we're now a team of 8 people. We've now got these people earning money, going out and spending in the local economy. We've got a courier calling every day, 2 couriers calling every day. I mean, all of these things creating jobs, and that's what we want to see. So, one of the things that sets Irish whiskey apart is our finishes. Yeah, our flexibility with the finishes and our flexibility with the maturation and all that sort of stuff, as opposed to Scotch. And it's one of the things that I think goes under an awful lot of people's radar. And I know, like, Chris Hennessy down in Kilkenny done a thing a while back, and I think you should do it again, Chris, if you're listening, because you were very good at the Christmas box that you done for us. But I think there's an education there, or there's an appetite for education with people for what are these tastes? What does it taste like? What am I tasting in the whiskey that I should be able to identify? And it's a great thing to be able to taste the different sherries and the finos as opposed to the Pedro Jimenez or Palo Cortado, to all of that sort of stuff, Oloroso, and the different flavours that they themselves. But one of the things that we have a lot of every month is port, and we've a real load this month of port. And again, the nuances in the different taste of the ports themselves allow for so much more. So we know, the headline things like Ruby Port or Tawny Port, but do you know that the influence that they can have on it and how they taste differently themselves? So there is a huge spectrum in this month's auction, from a couple of the different big names as well. I mean, you've got Taylors, you've got Dows, you've got Cockburns. These are huge, and they're old world port houses or spirits houses. So their port is a fortified wine. It's an aged, longer, matured wine. And again, then you've the differences between the late bottle vintage ports and the vintage ports themselves. So a vintage port is just roughly a port that's been 2 years aged in barrels from a specific year. So if it's a 2010 vintage port, then more or less it was vintage grapes from that year, 2010, and they were bottled in 2012, roughly speaking.
Give or take.
There is news. Late bottle vintage ports are different in that they get extended time in the barrels themselves, the grapes themselves. So you've got, like there's a 2012 Nile late bottle vintage port. So that would get 4 to 6 years in a barrel that would mature for. You've got the 1996 vintage port. So there you go. And it says on it bottled in 1998. So again, these things, you know, allow for more development of flavour in the ports themselves, and then in turn, when we get it, now, in truth, you know, the demand for port isn't quite what it used to be many years ago, or sherry, or all of these things. So now there's I wouldn't say very few, but there's been less of the barrels that would have been holding stock, and there would be more seasoned barrels, as in the barrels would be created, there'd be the cooper would make them. They'd put some vintage port in it, they'd season it, leave it out for a little while, 6 to 9 months, and then they're sent over here to be filled. So they haven't had a full maturation of a port or a full maturation of sherry or any of these other things as well. 10-year-old Tawny Port. So again, if you taste these ports, the difference in them, the tawny, the shallowness of a Tawny Port against a ruby port. Tawny Port just has that wee bit more spice. For me, I get that wee bit more spice from it. Just that wee bit more of a fight, where ruby port is a big, deep, bold taste, and that's lovely. There's a bottle of Dow's Fine Ruby Port, a bottle of Dow's 2004 Vintage Port, bottled in 2006, again, like I said, with the other ones as well. Special Reserve Cockburn's Special Reserve Port. Now again, some of it might be marketing bump, just to sort of go, shan't we, deadly Special Reserve and special of this and special of that.
Just had a brain fart.
Go, you can have a brain fart.
You know the way, it's just after you saying that people aren't drinking
as much.
Do you think that the finishes on Irish whiskey, as it gets bigger in the world, might make people curious to know what the port tastes like, and maybe help the port industry to come round again?
Look, again, you know, port is, and again, how do people view port? I mean, most people would look at port and say, oh, it's an old person's drink, or it's an after dinner drink. But I mean, sitting down to a glass of port is a fantastic thing. My own dad used to do it for years, you know. We see it in the pub. We see guys coming in and getting a brandy and port. So we actually do.
And a hot port.
And a hot port as well. Yeah, exactly. Lovely things. We fairly chew through the pork.
We do.
Pork as well. I chew through the pork as well. But
the port, yeah.
Yeah, no. we do fairly go through it. You're right, Kate. Look, again, I don't think any of the industries in sherry or in port are depending on the Irish whiskey
that's
industry.
Not what I mean.
But as you say, yeah, surely
make people curious.
Creating jobs again, as the demand for barrels. I mean, there's only a finite amount of genuine maturation stock for these industries. But as we say, like, I mean, anybody who knows how this came to be, how we came to using port and sherry. I mean, the barrels were sent to Ireland on boats, or in England on boats. The port was taken out and used and sold and consumed, and had nothing to do with the barrels essentially, and it was chucked the whiskey into it, and a bit more refined than that. But it is one of the things that I think, you know, people should, you know, develop their palates, know what they're looking for in whiskey, so that when you're tasting, you know, a ruby port finish as opposed to a Tawny Port finish, you can identify what came out of it and all that sort of stuff.
Right, so carry on.
So that's my lesson today on port. But again, it just shows the breadth of stuff that we have in our auctions every month. I mean, again, we're not just a whiskey platform. Here's Oak Rested Gin, Burroughs Reserve. It's a beef eater, so London gin, but that's an Oak Rested Gin. We're starting to see that with the poachings coming through, that it's an oak, a barrel rested poaching in front end days. I'm not quite sure what the regulations are with gin. Does it apply the same? Is there a finite amount of time they can hold it in a barrel or something like that? Again, there's no GI with gin per se. I presume with a London gin, there's the style of gin, but I don't think there's any GI that there's rules say you can't have it any more longer than 10 weeks. Does it say in the back of that?
I'm reading it.
Oh, okay, sorry, shut your face. One of the other things is brandies itself. So there's a Gonzalez Baez Jerez brandy. So that's a Spanish brandy from the Jerez region in Spain. We traditionally think of brandy just being a French thing, but there's so many countries out there that they can't call it cognac because cognac is a protected name from the Cognac region, and literally Cognac is such a small little region in France. Most people don't know that themselves. That it can't be called cognac.
No.
Even if it's down a bit. Where we lived in France, you couldn't call it cognac because it wasn't from the Cognac region. There's a bottle of, I think that's Greek stuff, isn't it, Niall? That Metaxa.
I think so. Yeah.
I think it's
Greek
Greek brandy again, and it's some of it's really, really good. 40% again, fairly high ABV. Hennessy is probably the one that most Irish people would know. There's a lovely set in this month's auction with a decanter and a bottle and the stoppers there as well. The stopper has like a feature to it anyhow.
Love heart, I think.
But Hennessy is one of the wild geese. He would have been one of the Irish guys who left Ireland and ended up over there. And I mean, it's mad when you see the Hennessy name and like in America, pop culture and all that sort of stuff. The boys drinking their Henny. It's a bottle of Hennessy from Ireland, and again the VS, the VSOP, and all that sort of stuff has different reflections of how long it was aged for and how long it is. I mean, some of them brandies, some of them cognacs, the eau de vie that's in it can be over 100 years old. I mean, the Louis XIII that I have up in the office, some of that's over 100 years old. Here's one. This is gorgeous. This is a Courvoisier. These are a special edition decanter and artwork that was done for them. Your details on that, Niall, are the artist up and died, didn't he?
Yeah, the first release after he died.
After that, so the artwork was done, but after the first release was released, he up and died. So I wondered, does that make it a wee bit more collectible? The green, I believe, is one of the harder ones to get. There's the green and the blue, and they're all different things. And I'm sure the actual cognac in themselves.
It's numbered as well.
It's numbered. Oh yeah, that's numbered on the back. Was that 4985?
Yeah.
4985.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, that is a really nice thing as well. Nice. The cognac collectors out there in the world, there's no shortage of them. I don't think it's quite as big as whiskey collectors, but I have a fair few. Don't smash it, baby.
I won't smash
Please
it.
don't break it. I don't have to explain that.
You don't have to. Cool.
We've two other ones. We've rums again. I mean, the rum is a huge influence on Irish whiskey, but you have all these drawn from cask, personally selected by Maestros del Ron Cubano, Havana Club. You love rum because you just love the rum Captain Morgan and Club Orange because it tastes like a super split.
Yes.
And it's a fantastic drink, and you does like that.
I do.
You do like that. But again, the rums, how much they influence the Irish whiskey, that is the quality. We've everything from just the generic run-of-the-mill, the rum agricoles, up to the Port Morant, rum agricole. It is just, she's agricole, all right. That'd be the fair description of it. How would you describe it? Oh, she's agricole. Up to the Port Morant in the Dunville's exclusive bottle. I mean, a bottle of Port Morant is over 2,000 euros on its own, long since, and they had wooden vats and all that sort of stuff as well. And beside that is a very unique bottle of Bols Genèvre. Genèvre is the Dutch juniper flavoured liqueur, but these things, and I mean, the balls, you know, the little houses and all that sort of stuff that you can get. You have some of the houses as well, but it's all done with the patterns and all that sort of stuff.
Ceramics are fab.
Ceramics are absolutely fantastic. 35%, and again in a lovely ceramic decanter and all that sort of stuff. again, I presume that they would have a collectability to them. I don't think they're
They probably have
mass.
different scenes from round.
Yeah, exactly,
Holland.
from Holland.
Yeah.
We should do that with Ireland. What would you put in the Irish ones?
Poaching.
Yeah, but what would you put on the front of the bottle? See the way like that's got a windmill? Like, would you, like, fellas puking in Temple Bar?
No.
No, is that not celebrating Ireland? No?
No.
No, okay. There's one for you. What would we put on the front of an Irish bottle to sort of... like
Scenes
the
from
like,
Ireland.
Scenes from Ireland, yeah, exactly. What is a traditional scene from Ireland? That's it. As I say, today was just more or less highlighting some of the other spirits that we have in our auctions every month. They grow. They literally they have an entity all on their own.
Yep.
The categories, we're probably going to refine that a wee bit more, and we're always working on the categories, trying to get them better. But I think they grow themselves, and it becomes an organic thing that we sort of then sort of try and hopefully make things easier for people to find them and that. So that's it. It is auction week. It's our first auction of 2023. There's plenty of bottles, there's plenty of different stuff. There's a couple of biggies.
There's a lot of scotch.
There's a lot of scotch. There is a lot of scotch, yeah. Yeah, we might have to rename it. No, we can't.
We
Scotch
can't.
Whiskey Auction.
We
Somebody's
can't.
already got that,
Yeah.
haven't they? We can't
Yep.
call that.
Nope.
How did I miss that? Oh, they were there since 2011.
There you go.
They were ahead of me a wee bit now. But there is a lot of scotch. And again, Americans, a fair few of them pricey, sought after bourbons as well. But that's it. We'll talk about all them during the week. Until tomorrow,
Ask them
very
again.
well. Bye bye.